So a lot of people have suggested that there are a range of factors that would make it difficult to put the system has not been tested in this way. Do you agree with that it would be difficult or nearly impossible for the law enforcement institutions to put him in actual jail?
No, they would just put him in a double wide somewhere out near the fence, out in the grass. And he would eat there, he'd shower there, he'd exercise there, he'd be away, as Danya Perry said, from general population, but it's obviously doable.
Wow. That sounds like a wonderful, wonderful arrangement. Would probably apply to anyone else who might be going to prison from the government. Joining me now, the wonderful Alex Swoyer, author of the book Lawless Lawfare, which is wildly, wildly inappropriate book for where we are right now. Well, Alex, the tables appear to have turned.
Yes, the tables have definitely turned. I know President Trump and his supporters have been waiting for this moment for quite some time. In the first couple of chapters of my book, I actually write about Russiagate, and it seems like 10 years later, this has come full circle. One of the major issues with Comey's indictment, which I think is at least somewhat beneficial to President Trump and his supporters, is that this came in the Eastern District of Virginia instead of Washington, D.C. We know the D.C. court system is extremely blue. Eastern District of Virginia is also very blue, but it has a little bit more red and a little bit less of a dynamic between Democratic appointed judges versus Republican appointed judges. I think the first appearance is going to be in front of a Biden appointee. So obviously judges matter, who appointed them and how they might handle the case going forward. One last thing about the venue is that it's kind of referred to as a rocket docket, meaning cases move really fast in the Eastern District of Virginia compared to other courts. So it doesn't look like Comey would be able to run out the clock in hopes of a different DOJ coming in anytime soon before he might have to stand trial.
Okay, Alex, can you give me some nitty gritty on the case itself? I don't need any help hating James Comey. I've hated him for a very long time. But as far as the actual evidence against him, you don't have to tell me what I want to hear. Is it pretty black and white? He did it. He's guilty. Is there a lot of gray area? It's going to depend on this or that. But what kind of case do we have?
Yeah, so right now you have James Comey's word that he, basically that he didn't leak against at least two other witnesses that we know of that say, yes, in fact, he did. So we know Andrew McCabe, who worked under Comey, said that Comey had authorized leaks. Okay, so that's one. Two was that his longtime law professor friend, Daniel Richman, he was from Columbia Law School, if you remember, and it was admitted that Comey would share notes with him, all that sort of thing. Well, it's been reported that this law professor told federal law enforcement that he would leak on behalf of Comey, basically talk to the press for Comey and make, the FBI seem in more positive light. One of the reports, I think it might be from Just the News, had noted actually that Richmond said that he was given highly classified information from Comey. So to me, I also wondered if that might be another charge the feds were looking at, the leaking not just of information, but that the idea that Comey shared classified information with someone who might not have been authorized to have that. I think that would be pretty big. That would fall under the Espionage Act. There's not necessarily a statute of limitations for that. So, I've kind of been one to wonder if more charges might be coming as well.
Fingers crossed for that. I am greatly enjoying the media they just had the vapors about putting Donald Trump away, now having to try to explain how this is a disaster. Maze Moore put together this little montage of Andrew Weissman.
He is being treated no better or worse than anyone else. This is not selective prosecution, that this is not somebody who's singled out, that he is being treated just like anyone else. That is what it means to have a rule of law. That is what the Justice Department is really signaling and messaging here, is that everyone will be treated, as Merrick Garland has said, as equally in this country. This is really a great day for America.
This is such a horrendous moment for the rule of law, for the Department of Justice, for the country writ large, being singled out for impermissible reasons. And so just because you did your job, but just because you referred the president or you opened an investigation into the president, those are not legitimate reasons to have a sort of tit for tat vindictive prosecution. This looks like it. The emperor has no clothes, that this is the abuse that it appears to be.
Alex, these people really do think the Justice Department should just work for them, right? They're pretty obvious about it.
Yeah, I find it kind of surprising, to be honest, because there's a lot of Democrats that I guess might have short memory. They weren't a big fan of Comey either back when it was October, I think, of 2016, when he came out and basically made this announcement about Hillary Clinton, how her handling of emails, the private email server, how it was very negligent, essentially, is what he said, but he wouldn't go as far as to say that there needed to be criminal charges. In fact, he said there shouldn't be, which was a whole issue Republicans had at the time. He overstepped. That wasn't even his realm to do that. That should have been the Justice Department, but he took it upon himself. And Democrats weren't happy at the time. They said that that was largely an October surprise that hurt Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election against Donald Trump. Now it looks like they're coming to his defense simply because, he's the first, I guess you could say, critic of the president that's been indicted. More to come, I'm guessing, given what we've heard from some of the Trump administration officials. I've wondered if we're going to see any more RICO allegations, kind of a conspiracy that's been hinted upon from, I think it was Tulsi Gabbard early on, maybe James Clapper, others that were involved in this initial, 2016, 2017 probe into the 2016 Trump campaign with the whole Russia allegations. More to come, I'm sure. But yeah, I think Democrats have short memory.
Alex, what about Christopher Wray? Kash Patel is going on Fox News essentially just saying he lied to Congress. I don't know what kind of immunity you have as the former head of the FBI. In my opinion, there shouldn't be any, but that's another story entirely. Is there a chance we see that scumbag burn?
Well, I would say there's no immunity. I mean, look at what's happened with James Comey, right? He's facing charges. And so if it was true that Wray lied while under oath, he would be able to face the similar charges. However, I'm not sure if first of all, the evidence or the statement would be as clear cut as what we have with Comey. I actually wrote down one of the quotes. I think it was, Wray told the House committee, if you are asking if the violence at the Capitol was part of some operation orchestrated by FBI sources or agents, the answer is no. And it does seem like Patel has come out and said there weren't agents at the actual speech where President Trump spoke. They didn't go from there to the Capitol, instigate any violence, that they were sent out actually after the rioting already began. So I think he kind of played with words, a little bit of a DC answer, which, he was very much, I'm sure, trained and experienced to give. So I'm not sure it would be as clear cut as a case that we have with Comey, but it does beg questions about if these reports are accurate that 274 FBI agents were sent to the Capitol on January 6th, carrying a firearm, but in plain clothing and not marked as agents. What's the reason for that? Why would they even do that? I think it would even present a safety concern for the agents, as we know other law enforcement agencies were around and responding at the time. So yeah, I definitely think there's more investigation that needs to happen, more answers need to come forward, but I don't know if Wray's answer was as clear cut as what we've had and what we've seen with Comey.
Alex, let's talk about the Supreme Court. Trump is calling on them to review birthright citizenship, which obviously is a disgrace. But how does this work? Can the president just say to the Supreme Court, hey, you need to hear this? And will they hear it? And if they do hear it, how are they going to decide?
Yeah, okay. So first of all, basically what happens on these cert petitions is the Trump administration goes to the Supreme Court and asks them to review lower court rulings against them. And so here, this is on the birthright citizenship issue. And what it comes down to is the 14th Amendment. And basically, President Trump has argued that, first I should start with the 14th Amendment. It reads, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So President Trump has argued that, those born here from illegals are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. In fact, they're subject to the country from which their parents come from. So that's their argument. Now, critics say that there's precedent from decades ago. I can't even remember. I wrote down the case, but basically I think it's Wong, King, Kim, Ark, that case. And Justice Sotomayor cited this in an earlier dissent, basically saying that it did attest to those who are on the U.S. soil are guaranteed, rights and citizenship under our Constitution. Basically, that it's a fundamental rule of citizenship guaranteed by the 14th Amendment is what Justice Sotomayor said. So, one, we already kind of have an idea of where she's going to fall. Not that we were, thinking she would be for President Trump at all. But what would happen for this case to get arguments scheduled would be at least 4 justices would have to vote in favor of hearing it. We won't know who they are. I wouldn't be surprised if we do get the justices to take this up, because if you remember right, at the end of last term, they took it up, but on the issue of nationwide injunctions. So they first decided we're going to look at this and see some of these lower court judges that are issuing these national blockades on President Trump's policies, whether they've overstepped their authority to do so. And they decided that, and they basically said in order for nationwide injunctions to be issued, there should be a class action or states should be the plaintiffs, that sort of thing. Judges have kind of found ways around that. They are moving quickly to certify classes in order to block the president's agenda. So I'm not sure that ruling actually had as big of an impact as we had initially thought. But given that this case is now back on the merits, on the actual 14th Amendment issue, I wouldn't be surprised if the court took it. Now, lower courts have ruled pretty much universally against President Trump and said no, because of that precedent that I cited earlier from Justice Sotomayor, that, they've said no, President Trump's take on the 14th Amendment is incorrect. And so because all lower courts haven't conflicted, right, they've all ruled one way, that gives the justices reason to kind of wait and see if there's a court out there that rules for the president. They like to take cases where lower courts have ruled differently to kind of set a standard. So we will find out. It could be weeks from now when we know if it's going to get scheduled for oral arguments. But yes, we won't really know what justices voted to hear it, but at least 4 would have to do so.
Alex, as always, appreciate you. Come back soon. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.